Good evening, folks, and welcome back to the FSU Weather live coverage event here of Hurricane Idalia here, about to make landfall soon or later tomorrow later tonight into tomorrow morning as it makes its way into the Big Bend. I'm student meteorologist Aaron Thread here to open up the 6 p.m. to 6:30 time slot here of our Idalia coverage. So this is a live view right now of Orlando, where we have those gray skies starting to filter in with that shield coming in, that cloud shield from Idalia, kind of overstreaming much of the Florida Peninsula here. And what it's going to do is it's actually going to allow for some rain showers to also come along with it too over the next several hours as Idalia does make its way off towards the north, and we'll continue to see more squalls and more squalls on top of more squalls as we continue on throughout the rest of the next several hours or so over the Florida Peninsula. So here's our live radar right now, actually right over Orlando, where we're showing that what was once a shower there near the downtown Orlando from that camera. If you go up a little bit to the north here near Titusville in Orlando there, we have that pretty strong, at least good reflectivities back here, indicating that we have some pretty strong, good strong tropical downpour there between Titusville and Orlando. Nothing severe right now, but again, some of these could have a little wrap-up tornado or two, and if you do get a warning from the National Weather Service, make sure to heed that, as it's not just a hurricane threat, we also do have a tornado threat as well, especially along that northeastern quadrant of the storm. So in other words, as that eye does continue to move up in latitude here, then at least the threat for tornadoes should diminish on the backside of that. But again, you still want to make sure you're weather aware. So for the most part, over the Space Coast here, we have those strong cell over Titusville, kind of wrapping towards Deltona and over towards Orlando. So let's go back towards Satellite Beach there, off towards the south and east there. And we see that kind of arcing back offshore. They're off into the Atlantic Ocean. So Palm Bay, Sebastian just had their share of rain here. We likely see more of that. And this kind of emphasizes the point that it's not just a Gulf Coast event. This is the Atlantic Coast here, and we're seeing some showers right now and some storms and pivoting around Idalia over the next, past few hours and continuing on for the next several hours. And this is why I want to kind of emphasize that we also, we have these showers coming in. They could produce perhaps a spin-up tornado or two along even the Atlantic coast. So even if you're listening to me from here from Titusville, Rockledge, Palm Bay, or Sebastian, or anywhere along the East Coast for that matter, you want to make sure you stay up to date on exactly what happened. So we'll go back towards Tampa to kind of show you, give you an update on what's going on there rainfall-wise. So it looks like earlier when we were coming on the air talking to you here, we had the initial squall line that's kind of going through Orlando. That's cleared out of Hillsborough County, although it's still in Pasco and entering Hernando County here shortly, kind of along, at least from US 19 along the coast all the way to US 301 and back towards US 27 is where we saw some light showers right now. And this is kind of the theme over the next several hours or so as Idalia makes its way up the coast. We're going to see some breaks in the showers, and then we're going to have a strong squall come in, then take another break. That's kind of how these tropical systems work as they spiral around the center of low pressure. So if we go further south along the coast here, we're staying pretty dry, at least through Sarasota County, down through Venice. We just kind of keep panning down there. Although we stop here, we see a few showers and storms near Boca Grande and Captiva, some of these little cells here kind of coming up along the coastline. These could even put a few water spouts out there as well, potentially, if they have enough rotation with them as well. But again, so Bonita Springs, Captiva, Boca Grande, also all kind of showing the possibility of a few little shells right now. And then further down towards the Everglades near Collier County, inland Collier County into Monroe, we have those kind of lighter showers there just south of I-75. But along Alligator Alley, we have that at least particularly stronger cell with some good tropical downpour here, just from about Naples shooting all the way to the eastward there. So we'll kind of go through the visible satellite to kind of show you what's going on with Idalia here, with those hot towers, so to speak, here coming up along the eye wall. And that's indicated by these kind of very dark black here, and then also into white colors in the spectrum, kind of indicating where we have the colder cloud tops. And where we have colder cloud tops, that means that we have very strong updrafts. And you don't want to see that very much near the center of a landfalling tropical system, because that would indicate that we have strengthening of the system. And that's what we've been seeing over the past several hours here, as again, it's still tracking up towards the Big Bend here. But even some of these cells out towards like the lower Keys over towards just off to the Florida Straits, we have some of those more robust thunderstorms as well. So it's not just the center circulation you want to worry about. Even if you're in Miami, we have these strong cells pivoting around the center of circulation. You'll be sure to hear that, a lot more of that throughout the night here on FSU Weather. So at least around the center of circulation, we have at least one flare up there, and then another one just off to the north here. And that indicates that we're going to continue to see the more robust activity, more deepening of that pressure as we continue on and throughout the rest of the night. And you don't want lower pressure. You want higher pressure in these storms, because lower pressure means we have a tighter gradient between the outside relatively higher pressure outside of the storm, and then we have a lot lower pressure towards the center of the storm there. And what that does is it basically allows for the winds to catch up to that. So in other words, the lower the pressure, generally speaking, the higher the winds will become. And that's unfortunately what we're going to continue to see over the next several hours as, again, it continues on its track towards the north, and unfortunately has the potential to continue strengthening all the way to landfall, which is not something, again, you want to see, at least here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, in this time of year with those really warm temperatures, which is what's helping to fuel these storms up. So the visible satellite, for the most part, you can kind of see a little bit of an eye trying to form there. We'll see if that can consolidate over the next several hours or so. But on top of that, we can also still kind of see some of those those updrafts, those overshooting tops of some of those thunderstorms around the eye, indicating, again, like the infrared, we have a powerful Category 2 Idalia now occurring across the eastern Atlantic Ocean, eastern Gulf of Mexico. And again, you don't want to see that as close towards landfall as it is right now. But we're going to send things over with an update with Ryan.
Thank you so much, Sharon. We're going to talk about both school closures and evacuation shelters as we start to prepare for Idalia. So if you're looking to make your way out of your home, if you're thinking, hey, the kids have to go to school tomorrow, I'm here to tell you they don't. Leon County, we're closed through Thursday. Also, Wakulla County, you're closed through Wednesday. And Florida State University, we are closed through Friday now. I also want to take a look at Franklin County. You guys are going to be closed through Wednesday. Lafayette County, you're closed through Friday. And Tallahassee Community College, you're also closed through Friday. When we take a look at shelters, we've got shelters all across the area that are opening up. Leon County, you are open starting now, as well as Madison County open at 5 o'clock. They are now open. And Taylor County, Taylor County is advising that they want everyone to be using Leon County's shelters because they feel they're going to be getting more of the brunt force. Also hearing that Lafayette County, due to high wind speeds, they're going to want other counties to be used within that. Madison County, yours is opened at 5 o'clock. Hamilton County, yours opened at 4 p.m. Leon County's got quite a few. Suwannee County, your shelter is open at noon. But again, Taylor County and Lafayette County, your shelters are closed. You're being, Taylor County officials are telling you to seek shelter within Leon County. Taking a look at the radar for Idalia, you notice the severe thunderstorm warning highlighted in yellow. We've got Surfside, Hialeah, Coral Springs, out towards the Alligator Alley. You're all part of this severe thunderstorm warning, as well as Fort Lauderdale. If we go ahead and zoom into it, we can see kind of what's going on within the storm near Pompano Beach. We'll flip it over to velocity, and typically this is used for tornadoes. We can just see how high the wind speeds. The bright colors of pink, this is where we're seeing some of the stronger wind speeds. So Parkland near Godfrey Road, Deerfield Beach, Hillsborough Beach, Pompano Beach, you guys are seeing some of the stronger wind speeds associated with this severe thunderstorm. And again, this warning is going to be going until for another 5 minutes. We'll see if it gets extended as the storm moves closer to Boca Raton, near the Hamptons at Boca Raton. We'll be keeping an eye on this storm as we go through the night. And then zooming out and kind of moving further to the north into central Florida, where there's more wind speed or more storms moving through. Seminole County into Volusia County and Brevard County is where we're seeing some of the stronger storms go through. Let's take a look at some of the cities in here. So all across Seminole County from near Mount Plymouth, Lake Mary, Winter Springs, Oviedo, Chuleta, and Geneva. You're seeing some of the heavy storms with this, as well as Scottsmore, Mims, Titusville, Port St. John near the Space Coast, near Kennedy Space Center here in Brevard County. You're seeing some of these stronger storms, as well as closer to Melbourne, just north near Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, South Patrick Shores. You're seeing some of these stronger storms move through, and these storms don't really have a severe aspect to it, but let's actually take a look at velocity. We can see near Scottsmore, Mims, we're getting a good burst of wind there. If we put the radar into motion real quick, we'll see just a quick burst of energy, quick burst of wind near Titusville, Mims, and Scottsmore. Really some bright colors in there. And then we can kind of flip around to different products as well. That kind of just shows that we're looking at rain within these cells. There's not really any hail, not really any tornadoes associated with this. And then we can go over to this. This would tell us if there's hail, maybe some smaller hail near Oviedo, Chiliota, near the Seminole-Volusia County line. But I don't really think, I think that's more just the radar picking up false returns. But nonetheless, there's some very heavy rain near Oviedo, Chiliota, and the Seminole-Volusia County line. Let's take a look at Power Outage US and where all the power outages is. So far in Florida, we've got 19,000 people without power. We're going to be talking a lot of those being in McCullough County, about 561 people in McCullough County already without power before the brunt force of Idalia moves through. Glades County, we're also dealing with 223 people out without power, so Glades County definitely seeing a lot of people without power. Miami-Dade County, 11,000 people without power. So as a whole, most of our power outages are being seen in Miami-Dade County as Idalia starts to work its way through. Again, we've got plenty of storms with this. I'll zoom the radar out and put the radar into motion here, and we can kind of get the idea of what Idalia is doing. You'll notice with the Tampa radar, just how big, and it is definitely trying to get an eye wall put together, but just how big that system is hanging off the coast of Florida. But again, bringing these outer bands into Orlando, Oak Hill, Titusville, Port St. John, Deltona into land. And then there's as well another band moving now into Palm Beach County near West Palm Beach. A new severe thunderstorm warning just went into effect for that system I talked about earlier. That's going to be going for another 30 minutes or so. So again, this one is going to be West Palm Beach, Wellington, Pahokee, Belgrade Camp, and the Hamptons at Boca Raton. That's where we're going to be seeing this severe thunderstorm warning going for about the next 30 minutes or so. Let's take the radar and bring it a little bit closer to home here in Tallahassee and see what all is going on nearby. 1 second. There we go. We definitely have a stronger storm over in, looks like Jefferson County. That's going to be moving quickly through Monticello, Greenville, moving towards the Georgia line there pretty quickly. Overall, we've got quite the active setup ahead, taking a look at Power Outage US, and then also taking a look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Again, that cone, we've got hurricane warnings all up and down the Big Bend region of Florida. We've got storm surge warnings out ahead of us as Idalia starts to take aim towards the Big Bend region of Florida. Folks in Tallahassee, we could be looking at a almost direct impact from Hurricane Idalia with near Cat 3 wind speeds is what to expect. So taking a look at everything as a whole, Idalia is going to, by tomorrow afternoon, work its way into Georgia, and then eventually into the low country and move off the coast of Carolinas here in the coming days. For more on Idalia and its path, I'm going to pass over to student meteorologist Josh Miley.
Thanks, Ryan. Now, as we get back over and start looking, it's definitely important that if you're in Orlando, you're still going to be under tropical storm warning. And while it may not seem as severe, it's still very important that you take city precautions, because even under tropical storm conditions, they can still be very life-threatening and property damaging. Okay. So as you zoom into the Seminole County, which is right over here, we'll see areas of heavy rain in Oviedo, Geneva, going through central Seminole County, especially, which is really bad during rush hour right now. So if you're in that area, you want to get home as soon as possible and try to stay off the road as much as possible if you can. And at this point, you're basically best off just bunkering down. And if you go back towards the westwards, just towards the I-4, then you'll also see the rain starting to head up towards Deltona into Volusia County as well. So as you know, in Orlando, we're all going through I-4. Just be careful as you go make your commute home today. And once you get home, just stay home for the rest of the day and going into tomorrow, because it's going to be dangerous weather outside tomorrow, and it's just going to be slippery conditions. So as we move south towards Titusville and going down to Rockledge, we're also seeing the rain. It was further south in Satellite Beach, but now it's starting to work its way back up towards Titusville. So we'll zoom back out and head towards West Palm Beach, Miami. And we just saw some thunderstorms that Ryan just talked about earlier. So those are definitely going to be going up from southern Palm Beach County all the way up to West Palm. So it's one thing you will need to be careful if you're going to be over there. And again, while tropical storm conditions, may not seem all that bad, it's important to realize that, like I said, they can be very much life-threatening, and they're something that you need to take seriously because they can leave just as much rain and be just as dangerous as Category 1 or stronger hurricanes. So as we zoom back across the state, then we'll start to see that the Idalia is going to be off to the west coast. It's going along not the Treasure Coast. It's going along the Tampa coast, going out to Sarasota, Fort Myers. It's important to realize that while we're off the coast to the west of it, or we're east of it, sorry, you have to realize that we're on the east side of it, so you're going to have stronger winds. That's something you need to keep in mind. If you don't keep that in mind, then you're going to be in much more danger, especially with the storm surge that's going to possibly come in to the west coast of Florida, especially in Tampa where the water isn't as deep. That's something you would want to make sure you know. So, and finally, we'll zoom in towards Gainesville. That'll be right over here. We're also seeing some rain going. We're also seeing some rain going into Williston, also just east of Gainesville and Palaca as well. You're going to have some rain there that you need to keep an eye on as well. But overall, it's just something that you have to keep in mind. Just because it's not as severe just because it's not severe doesn't mean it's something that you shouldn't take seriously. Here we have the visual satellite showing the formation of the eye, or at least the attempt at formation. It's doing it right now. It's definitely more organized. It's more organized than it was earlier. So it's just going to provide much more of an emphasis or a mechanism for it to get stronger as it head towards the Panhandle, Big Bend area. So it's one you got to be careful if you're outside right now. You need to start preparing. Get inside. Get your last-minute preparations. Tonight's not the night to go out. I'm sorry, but your safety is much more important than having a good time. So get inside. Get prepared and get ready to bunker down and shelter in place for a while. This is not something to take too kindly. And as we see, this storm is much more developed in terms of its shape, but also you see that while the eye wall wasn't forming earlier, it's definitely starting to take place and form right over here. And we're also seeing that the outer bands are making its way across the state, going through the majority of the peninsula. It's going from Miami to Orlando and starting to head up towards Gainesville and Jacksonville area. Overall, this is something you need to make sure you don't take too lightly. And then also, if you zoom back towards actually the storm itself, we're just seeing that strong unified rotation. That wasn't there as much earlier, but now that it's starting to form, it's making it perfect for the storm to get ready. Now we're going to start to do an overview of the forecast, make sure that you get the important information so that you can ride out the storm safely.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. As Idalia starts to make a closer run at landfall, we definitely want to kind of take an overview of what all is happening. Let's kind of hit the brakes. We've been talking for a while now about the potential impacts. Let's kind of take an overall look at it. Look at Doak Campbell Stadium. Sun is out. It's gorgeous, right? We've got a few more hours of this gorgeous sunshine before we need to start really hunkering down for Idalia. So if you need to get your last-minute preparations in, bring the patio furniture in, whatever you have to do, we've got gorgeous conditions for it right now. The Atlantic as a whole is busy. We are approaching the peak of hurricane season in mid-September. So we've got tropical depression 11, I should say. Hurricane Franklin here is a Category 3. We now have Category 2 Hurricane Idalia, as well as this area nearing formation. But again, our main focus has been Category 3 Hurricane Idalia as it prepares to make landfall here in the Big Bend region of Florida.
That's right, and of course we're going to see the continuation of those conditions deteriorate as we continue on throughout the rest of the evening here across the Big Bend. But again, back to live look at Cedar Key. Right now we have those cloudier conditions right now across much of the Forgotten Coast and over the Nature Coast too, here where Cedar Key is at, because we have that incoming storm, Idalia, that's going to bring us that cloud shield, that rain shield, that's going to give us that, of course, those squalls out ahead of the line of the actual eye itself. So again, very much want to look very closely at how this will evolve over the next coming hours or so. So back towards visible satellite, we have that center of circulation there, right about where my finger's at, and that kind of shows you that the storm is continuing on its jog to the north, and actually at a fairly quick pace too, at least for a Gulf storm this time of year. But visible satellite shows a relatively healthy storm here, and it'll continue to actually become and still stay healthy as it makes its track to the north, as we have high sea surface temperatures and relatively low wind shear. We'll have to see exactly how that plays out exactly precisely at landfall, but for the most part, pretty healthy storm here on tap, and that's not something you want to see. Healthy in the sense that it's healthy for the storm itself, not for, of course, us. It's not a good thing that we have this happening, but again, it's relatively well ventilated. We have lower wind shear, which is helping to bring that wind kind of into the center of circulation and able to vent it out of that eye very efficiently, kind of like an engine, so to speak. But live radar, we have those squalls coming through Miami, just past West Palm Beach area, or I should say passing through West Palm Beach currently right now, over Miami, just past it. And then we have another one kind of setting up offshore here. It could potentially increase as we go into the later hours. So spaghetti plots, we do want to mention too, a lot of these have been trending west. The National Hurricane Center's track is a little bit toward the east of this, but not by much. But we want to stress this enough that there's not really much in the way of difference we're going to see outcome of this. It's kind of already, we're going to get the strong winds here. We're going to get the pretty severe downpours. So again, we don't want to stress that it's going to change significantly at this point, because it's not really. It's just maybe a matter of whether or not we're just to the west or east or whatever. So either way, same impacts, same conditions we're going to expect here at this point on. So zooming in a little bit closer to Tallahassee, again, the NHC has it a little bit further to the east, but those models have been kind of tightly clustered just here near the Tallahassee area. But again, don't ever watch one model as, again, it could wobble too as it makes landfall. So here's the official NHC cone of uncertainty here. Again, do not look at that center line. It can make landfall anywhere from just near Alligator Point off towards about Cedar Key. Anywhere in this area is fair game from when we could expect to see the worst of the conditions here across the area. And the reason why is because we have those above average temperatures, really very soupy there across the Gulf of Mexico. And unfortunately, it's going to help to intensify Idalia further.
All right. So as we're gonna go into the science behind besides hurricanes in general. So we're gonna go over the Saffir-Simpson scale. We're starting off with Category 1 hurricanes. They're the weakest hurricanes on this overall scale. Now they're going to leave minimal damage, but still something that you should never underestimate. Going to Category 2, you're going to see some more damage, especially with like roofs being more damaged than Category 1s. It's going to also have windows smashed most likely, and many trees will be down. Going up to Category 3, that's when we hit major hurricane status. That's something that when you hear that, that's a major red flag. You'll have likely coastal flooding, power lines will probably be down, and major damage to homes and down trees. So that will be a very hazardous situation. In Category 4, that's just even worse. It can just, if you see these are not good at all. It's worse than like having Category 3, obviously, but also you'll have more flooding. You'll have much more damages that are really, really damaged. And then 5 is finally just the worst case scenario. You never want to see this. And if you've seen Michael, you understand why. So going to storm surge, if you see, here's the normal sea level, but once you bring that wind, that'll bring in the water pushing into the house, then you'll just see that it's not going to be nearly near the house height, but also just be definitely over a person's height overall. So if you're at 12 feet storm surge, that means it's going to cover the first floor, the first story, and that just makes it very dangerous for people on the homes in the coast. So pre-storm advice: you need to stay weather aware. Make sure your phones are charged, your radios are charged, and be in the know. Make sure you also assess the area, have an idea of what you're going to do in terms of staying, if you need to evacuate, and also help everyone get through the situation. And make sure you charge your phone, secure your documents, be ready to go if you need to go. Now, for storm advice, when you're actually in the storm, you need to stay aware, be following on your phones if you have the power, or if not, make sure you use your radios. Take refuge in terms of staying in a storm shelter or secure building. Do not be in the car. Do not be on the road. Try to outrun it. You're not gonna beat it at all. And also if you need to, stay in a secure building. No mobile homes. And also, if you need to, go to the highest floor to avoid floodwaters. And finally, make sure after the storm ends, pay attention to local officials for info. Avoid electrical equipment and floodwater. Make sure you save your phones for emergencies only. And finally, make sure that you don't use your generators inside to develop carbon or risk carbon monoxide poisoning. Just make sure to stay alert, stay informed, and stay calm.
Yeah, thank you so much, Josh. We're going to kind of, reset where we're at and think, all right, who's under a watch, who's under a warning, what does this mean? So all these areas in bright red, you find yourself under a hurricane warning. For all these areas in bright red, that means hurricane conditions are expected in the coming hours. For those of you in the kind of darker red, you're under a tropical storm warning, which means you could see those tropical storm conditions in the next few hours. And then those lighter pinks are hurricane watches. That just means eventually you'll see. Let's take a look at the GFS. The wind speed when it hits Tallahassee, we're going to be looking at between 41 to 60 miles per hour, and then we get to these pinks where it's going to be above 80 miles per hour wind speed wise. So even the whites, we could be seeing well over 100 mile per hour winds making its way into Tallahassee as we get to the overnight hours tonight. The GFS brings in a little bit earlier in the morning. Let's compare that to the Euro. The Euro bringing it in about 10-15 tomorrow, a little bit weaker. A lot of the winds have died down, but still 41 to 60 mile per hour winds as the Euro brings it in for tomorrow morning. Rainfall-wise, we're looking at some heavy flooding, especially along the coast, moderate risk of flooding along the coast. And even as we get towards Tampa, Gainesville, over to Tallahassee, we're still under a slight risk for flooding. And knowing like Tallahassee's flooding potential, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some flooding within the area. As we get into tomorrow, we find ourselves under that moderate risk of flooding all throughout Georgia and then working its way to South Carolina, kind of following the path of the storm. So let's take a look at what the GFS thinks rainfall-wise. Of course, this depends on where exactly the storm goes. If the storm goes a little further east, the rainfall will be a little further east. If it goes a little further west, it'll go a little further west. But we're looking at about 10 to 15 inches of rain in this yellow spot, and that includes parts of downtown Tallahassee. The Euro also showing heavy amount of rain, a little bit less for us here in Tallahassee, more of a 5 to 7 inch event. But again, it all depends on the track. If we're looking at further east, further west, we're noticing storm surge warnings all up and down the Gulf Coast of Florida, wrapping its way into the Big Bend as some of our phones start to go off with warnings just letting us know. And then we've also got storm surge watches up and down the Georgia Low Country and the South Carolina area. Again, the storm surge warning is going to be going until tomorrow at about 5:15. We're going to see McCullough County, St. Marks, all the way down into Jefferson County and parts of Madison or Taylor County, I should say, all parts of this storm surge warning. So we're actually going to be wrapping up our coverage here. We'll see you in about a half hour, and we're going to continue our coverage throughout the night here on FSU Weather. We'll be with you all the way through the event.